Ready to rock and roll? I'm ready
I
to rock
am.
and roll. All right, we don't want to have me breathing. We don't want to have me typing. Crofton is not going to feel very
It's the
positive towards me.
clicking. It's not that.
I can't help it. I have work to do, so I'll
But
try my best to keep it to an
No,
absolute
I
minimum.
think I listened to an episode since that, and it seemed like there was a huge
The
improvement.
last one that went out was better, and it was because I changed some stuff also in post. I stopped boosting up the volume so high. Anyways, technical talk. All right,
Boosting.
let's go.
Turn it up.
Episode. Yeah, episode. Good, bad, or bullshit. 154 records in 3,
Pump up the
2.
jam.
Hello and welcome to the Good, Bad, or Bullshit podcast. 3 guys, unlimited opinion, where conversation is the foundation of higher thought. My name is Bo Schwartz, and joining me, as always, is the eternally handsome, eternally young Crofton Steers. Crofton, hello.
Hello, Bo. I'm as handsome and as intelligent as I am modest. That is a lot.
Okay, well, that was a great way to introduce yourself. Also joining me, as always, is the ever cynical, ever crotchety, and ever analytic Mike Hodgins. Michael, hello.
that seemed mostly negative. Though I was telling Crofton I'm embracing my inner cynic. And it's like, there's some useful things about being a cynic, Bo. So, yeah,
Well,
hello to you.
I didn't mean it disparagingly, but
Yeah,
I guess
people mostly do.
putting you in
Cynicism has
opposition
that
to the handsome guy kind of makes it feel that way. You know, you are cursed with the stroke of, not the stroke. You're cursed with skepticism. You know, it makes you not fun at parties, but you know the truth. And Crofton drinking from the well of lies.
You can call it truth.
It does make you think about that red pill, blue pill matrix thing. You know, like, is it worth it just to be ignorant and enjoy all these things, or do you want to be that, cynic and be aware of all the negative, know how the sausage is made for a lot of this? Like, what do you want? Do you want the knowledge, or do you want the happiness?
It's funny. I was just saying that exact thing to Andrea the other day, being like, because I think this is true of most people, but I'm like, I get smarter as I get older because I learn more things all the time, and my understanding of the world increases. I think because I make a point of trying to learn new things, and I'm like, definitely, I was probably mostly happier, go luckier when I was dumber, for sure. Like when I knew less, when I didn't understand how some things are connected to other things, I was like, whatever, and now I'm more like, oh. Really? And the cynicism is just taking hold. And, there's a lot to be said for just like ignorance is bliss, the old saying.
You can't just use your iPhone happily. You have to know that it was made in horrific conditions in order to be able to provide you with an affordable.
I do want to know how the
device.
sausage is made. The problem is you have no choice but to eat it. It's like, how it's made, and they're like, and this is the only food available, this horrible sausage. And I'm like, oh, I guess I'll eat it.
Well,
I'd probably do the same.
Yeah.
Well, on that awesome note, does anyone have any big news to share before we move on to our main event of debating a topic?
I can't think of huge, awesome news, but the fact that you asked that question makes me realize that I need some huge, awesome news sometime soon. Feels like I'm stuck in like a rut of no huge, awesome news.
For we have listeners all over the world, and they may not know what goes on locally, but over here, the news du jour is the giant sinkhole that's forming in the center of this beloved national capital of
That's
Ottawa.
true.
Yeah, the ground's caving in, and the memes
The
have
underworld is literally devouring us.
begun. Yeah.
It's funny because, like, when I saw that, I was just like, but there was one last year that was almost the same size, too.
Was it?
Yeah, and in almost the same place. And it was definitely.
No way.
Yes.
I've heard
Yeah,
about
look it
that.
up. You'll see it. It's like, it was a huge one. I think it may not have also swallowed a car, but it could have swallowed several. It was huge.
That car was
I
the
just
best
think
part of that. I that guy might not get a dime in insurance because I think it was illegally parked when the guy was sunk into the hole.
It was a locksmith, and he had all his locksmith kit
Ooh.
inside and all his stuff, and they didn't go and get the van. They just dumped concrete on top of it. So he'll never get that. I was thinking, though, imagine, if you will, if that guy had just murdered somebody and put his body in the van and was like, "Oh man, what am I going to do? I got to get rid of this body." It's,
let me just go in. Let me just go into Starbucks quick, get a coffee.
Yeah,
and I'll throw it
get a coffee, get my brain working. Oh shit, the van just got sucked into a giant hole, and then they pour concrete in it. And he's like, "Oh, thank God,
He's like,
I'm scot
serendipity. Ding.
Now give me another Starbucks to celebrate. The thing is with the giant sinkhole that made me laugh is the day before I was driving to Ultimate Frisbee, the greatest sport in the world, and I was listening to the radio, local radio, and the top story in local Ottawa news was that there was a tree downtown on Elgin Street with like bees in it. Like to be fair, there was like
Well, it doesn't happen too often.
15,000 bees or something, and they had to bring in a beekeeper to like move the bees and stuff. But the lead story, we have like an urban area of like 1 million people, and the lead story was this just in local Ottawa news: bees are in this tree downtown, you know. And then I'm like, oh, Ottawa, and I was laughing about it. And then the next day, the underworld opens up. And just like in the middle of the city starts sucking in cars, and we're national news. So
international. I saw a Wall Street Journal article and a New York Times article.
On the hole in the street, man, it's a slow news day everywhere.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a big hole, man. 3 stories deep.
I think the news people would hope that it grows bigger and becomes like an actual thing. Unfortunately, I think they're going to solve the problem pretty quick. But it'd be
It does
great.
sort of look like the buildings adjacent to it could fall into it.
That
like,
would be
like once
awesome.
their foundations get undermined. I'm like, man, that could be bad.
It would be awesome in a certain respect, but it's kind of terrible. I mean, that place is kind of an eyesore, anyways. We need some rejuvenation. Let the
What are you
ground
talking
suck
about?
it
It's
all
like
up.
the hub of downtown.
Yeah, but
Right
they
on
can
the
make it
corner.
prettier. It's just,
Byward Market
Yeah,
in Parliament.
But the best story I heard was that there was a press conference where the mayor, Jim Watson, was our Ottawa mayor, Jim Watson, was saying, so we've evacuated the building, blah, 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 blah. And then a reporter got up and said, well, is the mall closed? Jim Watson was like, yeah. That's the story. I was like,
Yeah, the mall.
I'm not a reporter. I'm a shopper. I was just wondering if the mall would be open, even though you evacuated it.
And then he's like, follow up question. Do you know where I can get some bus tickets? They're like, oh, this news conference is over.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, speaking of things that are over, this opening act is over, and we move on to Act 2, the conversation. Mike, get the conversation starter going, also known as a random topic generator.
Yeah.
If you want to hear more about this conversation, follow the Ottawa Sinkhole on Twitter. It has its own Twitter account as this van.
Man, sometimes the random topic generates like it's plugged into the news and gives us a topic which is apropos.
That's
Because-
crazy.
Well, yeah, just to make it just to
What
build.
is it?
something
Do we have
further.
sinkholes in there?
No, not sinkholes, but something they could have used that sinkhole for a landfill. That's the topic: landfills. The dump.
Wow,
A dump.
how apropos. Because while you were
That was
getting
a
the random
stretch.
topic generator ready, Crofton's told people to go follow Ottawa Sinkhole, the Twitter account. And it's
Oh,
pretty funny.
Got it.
There's so many memes of things coming out of the hole. And it's a landfill, so it relates. But
Yeah, so they filled it with concrete, but maybe they should have just dumped garbage into it and buried it. Two birds with one stone. We got a waste problem. Everyone does.
Okay, so here, just to sum up, like what a landfill is, and we've been shying away from doing these definitions for a while, but it's essentially a piece of land generally outside of a city where we dump garbage. Is that fair?
Yeah, and then you bury it. I think burying it.
I think they compact a lot of it, though, right?
Well, they drive over it with big,
Don't they
filters and stuff.
put it into like cubes and shit?
No.
Maybe
They drive over. They have these. Have you not seen these like the special dump truck machines where the tires are basically these giant steel tires with big like I don't know what you'd call them, like spikes in them to drive through the garbage, and it crushes it all down. But
and I guess garbage trucks crush.
yeah, garbage trucks crush everything down.
But okay, I guess with regards to landfills is obviously a giant pile of stinking garbage is not necessarily desirable, but until like we get to the stage as humanity where we're able to like recycle or disintegrate and recreate things out of all the garbage, then we need a place to put our garbage. And there's bigger issues about consumer culture and disposing things and all that we have to address. The landfill is just sort of like the end product. So it's kind of like the toilet, if you will, And it's like you might have problems with all the shit and all the shit you're eating, but in the end, you still need a toilet. So,
Yeah,
what
I mean,
I guess like what's like, yeah, I'd like to have smaller landfills and less landfills, but like they serve a purpose, right? Like we
well,
need them.
they say you touched on a whole bunch of things that are tied up in this, which is like,
Okay, let's go.
well, how much of that? Because it's like, okay, you have the landfill. It makes like I think of my dad as an example of where I go to my dad's house, and like most modern cities, we have divided our waste into recyclables of like plastic, paper, and metal,
Mm-hmm.
and then compostables, and then everything else, which is not much. Like if you do a good job separating all those things, and that stuff goes to landfill, right? Which is, but if you're someone like my dad, who just puts everything in a big garbage bag and says, it's all garbage, it goes in the garbage. And I said, Dad, separate that stuff. It could be reused. And he's like, it's garbage. And then the raccoons inevitably tear his garbage apart and spread it all over his laneway, which I love because it seems ironic to me. But that's the thing, is it like it's like having that like having the landfill just still enables people to just be like, I don't give a shit, put it all in the garbage bag. In fact, Bo, aren't you? We did recycling on this episode, and you were like, I hate recycling, and you just put everything in the garbage because you're a lazy person who doesn't like
Yeah,
to.
one of the great big regrets in my life, the recycling episode has to stand out as kind of one of them.
You'll
Wait, but
never live that down.
question,
Yeah.
like, yeah, that verdict you've already expressed regret for on our 100th episode, which is a great episode. You all should check it out. But is do you recycle now?
So have you learned anything from your regret?
Well,
It's
okay.
like,
So,
it's a big regret that I didn't on my
all
podcast
right.
say that it was good, but I still don't do it.
Like
at
what
home,
image
no.
you're concerned
Mind
about
you,
not-
I'm one person. I generate little garbage, but no, I don't. I don't recycle.
you don't. There's boxes and they're labeled
Wait.
by color. Okay, let's not.
Before we shame Bo too much, I always enjoy shaming Bo, but we just to take this and use it as a point. The thing is that there's a bunch of people that will be like your dad or Bo or anybody, and like there's a lot of people that are, or a lot. There's a few people that are living in the woods and are like, I can live with zero waste for a year, and or all their waste is in this bag. Like you see these families go off and do these things, and that's great. Honestly, it shows how little waste that it is essentially possible to contribute. But the reality is that we live in a crazy consumer culture. Disposable stuff. You can go in the States. You go to McDonald's. You buy a big drink. It comes in a plastic cup. It's like most people don't take that plastic cup home and start using it as a regular cup. They're like, oh, fuck it, throw it in the garbage.
Yeah, but it's probably got a recycling symbol on it.
Oh, potentially. All I'm saying is that there's always going to be trash until, there's always going to be trash, essentially. And right now, landfills are how we deal with the trash. So if we're rating, like, I have a lot of issues with the amount of trash that's created. I have a lot of issues with what is trash and what is not trash and all that sort of thing. But in terms of what the landfill does, I'm kind of like, what else? Like, what will we do instead of having a landfill?
Well, I guess it's still the fact that like so much of this stuff that goes to landfill because irresponsible people like Bo, who refuse to get with the times and
God
separate
damn
their
it.
garbage. Because when you separate it down, most of your stuff doesn't go to landfill. But it's just like, I guess my question is, does having the landfill just enable people to continue acting irresponsibly? Because it's just an easy out. And people like my dad, who's like, I don't care, put it in the garbage. It goes in the landfill. And I think that it's like, if there wasn't a landfill, like if you had people to just put a bag out with all their stuff mixed together and someone was just like, no, we're just gonna throw it back on your porch and it's gonna sit there and stink until you separate your shit out, might make people,
But you yourself have talked on this show about the value of garbage men to society in terms of preventing disease and this sort of thing. They could never do that because you get one asshole that gets sick because of all the garbage laying
no, they're
around.
doing it right now I think it's Paris. Right now, the garbage men are on strike and there's garbage piling up everywhere. And all I'm saying is that enacts,
That's not a good thing, though.
It's not a good thing, but it enacts change. So people like when the garbage man is not paid enough, I still think, and if they go on strike, they might get better paid. If the same thing amounted, like if you had enough garbage piled up in your front yard, and the answer was just like, you just need to put this stuff in this pile and that stuff in that pile, and it's all going to get taken away, eventually people would be like, I'm sick of these rats in my goddamn house. I'm going to separate my garbage. But instead, they're just like, someone's like, we're just going to go put it in a hole for you.
Yeah,
But
And
it's like that.
you're
You
arguing
have to have a
rate of
yard for
garbage.
that. Sorry.
Sorry, Crofton. It's just you're arguing rate of garbage. Like even if you are the paragon of recycling, you are generating some garbage. So if it's in your domicile, at some point it will be more than you can handle. So you have to find a place to put it.
okay, well, so here's the other, and I've been just, I didn't want to get this right off the get go, but the other thing, and this is an emerging technology, it already exists, but are different kinds of like high heat incineration, where
Right.
you can burn anything almost at super high heats and use that as a fuel to produce local electricity.
Mm-hmm.
And there's questions about like what kinds of toxic shit are coming out of the the
Right.
stacks. And I think that a lot of the good ones apparently burn them so hot that, that there's almost nothing coming out, and you can put different kinds of scrubbers or as this technology evolves, stuff like this, because you know so I think it's like dealing with landfill is just, it comes down to, it's probably the absolute simplest way to deal with our waste problem. And like you said it, we live in a consumer culture, we have too much garbage. That's not going to change overnight, you're absolutely right. But like, someone would be like, how should we deal with this problem? And someone's like, I know, let's dig a big hole and throw everything in it. Like, that's the absolute simplest possible way, where you might have a technology of being like, well, we could convert this into energy that we could all use. That's at least a more interesting solution. And there was big talk about one in Ottawa, where we live, and I can't remember if it actually got up and running. It always ends up causing a fiasco because it costs a lot of money to get off the ground. And people are just like,
They had a
just
prototype.
Throw it all in the hole,
They had a prototype in this white van that they just parked near the Rito Center, but nobody can find it anymore. That's a good point. Like, it's obviously not ideal to have, or sustainable to just keep throwing trash into one like giant dumping area. But to echo Bo's point and going back to your thing earlier, like your scenario of throwing it on somebody's yard, in dense cities, people live in apartment buildings, condo buildings. They end up in the hall. It's like, yes, there's strikes in Paris. Yes, you can go a little while without garbage collection, but it needs to be done. And so really, I think you're right to talk about like technologies evolving, but before we get there, landfills still serve a purpose. Like, I mean, I just don't know. I have issues with all the trash that ends up there, but I don't necessarily have an issue with the landfill. I hope that they find better ways of dealing with things, but like the landfill still serves its purpose.
I like.
Well,
right?
it's just like what is like. So you see, the purpose is to where to put all our junk.
Outside of an urban center, away from like where it could create
but that's
disease.
just like, first of all, like that's been shown that doesn't really exist. I mean, well, okay, so there's old landfills and new landfills, and new landfills, the idea behind them, and I happen to listen to a Stuff You Should Know podcast about
there
landfills.
it is. Everyone take a drink if you're playing the drinking game at home.
Drinking game for Stuff You Should Know. It's a good podcast. And
They haven't
basically,
paid us their advertising fee lately.
Whatever.
Anyway, sorry, keep going, Mike.
if they mentioned someone on their show, they got like 1 million listeners, and we got
It's the future of advertising, native advertising, folks.
yeah, it's embedded. Try to get rid of it. And basically, the idea is that a modern landfill, and this is once again people like Bo, irresponsible people who need to be shamed, screwed up, because the idea of the modern landfill and why you separate out your compostables is because it's kind of well known that a modern landfill is supposed to be waterproofed on the bottom, so that and kept as dry as possible. So like when you think of the stuff that if you separate your compost into your compost, all that should be left in your garbage is like pieces of like plastic packaging and maybe styrofoam. Okay. There shouldn't be like food mixed in and stuff like that. And you put it in a landfill, and then that'll eliminate a lot of problems with landfill, because like traditional landfill, the problems is like the leaching toxic, because as all this stuff decomposes and it goes through and collects other toxic shit that is in the landfill, like lead and mercury and all kinds of crap, as this water like seeps through this sludge, and then it's called leachate, and then goes out into the water table, and then it gets into rivers and streams and destroys ecosystems. And modern landfills try to manage that, but I think they can only do so to such a degree because people aren't always going to just put in the dry goods. And as much as they're like, oh yeah, we waterproofed it, time time will eat through any waterproofing eventually. Like those
Sure.
things are all going to
Yeah.
leak one time, and they're just like toxic. They're toxic waste dumps. Is what they are. There's so much toxic stuff, even in a normal landfill, and that stuff is not isolated from the environment, even though that's what they're trying to do. The environment's all interconnected. So the landfill as a way to deal with waste, it just seems like okay, we've already taken the step of like people who care about things put the metal in the metal and the plastic in the plastic, and it goes somewhere else, right? It doesn't go to the landfill. And you put your compost, and it goes someplace else. And then I think the next step is just be like, okay, well, what do you do with that little bit that's left? And I think that maybe some technological advances like burn it, make electricity from it locally, and deal with the pollution that comes out of that, or whatever. I think there are better options than a big hole in which you put trash.
But are those options ready right now? Like that's
Well,
if you could turn. Well, I do this with a lot of the topics we do on the show, but if tomorrow you could make it so that this thing does not exist anymore, in this case landfills, you just eliminate all landfills from the globe, would our lives immediately be better or worse or the same? And I think I understand what you're saying about the environmental damage, but right now it feels like while all these technologies are great, and I hope that's the direction we're going in, we still need landfills. And I'm glad that even from what you're saying, landfill technology has improved. Because the thing is, you're always going to have the bows, right? That are just like pissing on Mother Earth.
and
Just
their fellow man. Don't forget their fellow.
yeah. So
Wow.
I think that's where it gets tricky because you're always going to have a sizable amount of garbage, and until you're able to on an industrial scale eliminate that garbage with an alternative method, then you end up reliant on something like landfills. And let me like it sounds like I'm defending landfills here. If I was given the option of where to live, and I see in that it looks like a great housing picture on the internet, and it's like, oh, nice price, really cheap. Oh, let me go check. I'll go visit this house. I get there, and then oh, lo and behold, there's a landfill down the street. I mean, I would not want to live there because landfills, in and of themselves, not desirable. We have a friend recently who said that they were moving to an area that has a fairly large.
Known for its dump.
It's known for its dump, and that was our first, reaction, being like, "Oh, really? The
But
dump?"
the
place?"
interesting thing about that, because I learned kind of recently, is and I think this is kind of sums up landfills and why we need to probably get off the landfill as a solution. And obviously, this is a complex problem, but it's a fact that like what we're also doing by landfilling all this stuff is we're just deferring a problem. We're just saying like, hey, great grandchildren, you deal with this stuff because we're too stupid, and I really want my plastic cup or whatever, and I really don't want to put it in recycling.
But wait, this is like we're recently aware
No,
that
no.
this is a
Okay,
problem.
let me finish my. You respond. You can respond to this in a second. But even in our town, which is not a very old city by comparative standards, there are landfills all around. Apparently, you can find a map of where there were old landfills, and they put them in weird places, like right next to the river. And these were landfills from like the early 1900s or late 1800s, where they weren't like sealed. Who knows what went in them? There was a lot more toxic materials, lead, and other kinds of things in use at those times that are just leaching into groundwater and rivers. They were all over our city, and we have this big area in Ottawa called Le Breton Flats, which has been being redeveloped. And the whole area took years to get this area of land because it had to be remediated because the soil was also an industrial area. But like I guess the point being, when we don't deal with their waste now, and we just put it someplace, eventually someone's going to be like, oh, we need to use this land for something, and then they dig into it and be like, oh, that's not a hill, that's a massive pile of garbage, and it's like, and it's all full of toxic stuff, and you'd be like, what do you do with it? And it's like it's like we're already encountering this, and lots of municipalities are where they're trying to expand and being like, oh, this is an old landfill underneath this whole area. and it's a cost that we're putting on to the future. And I mean, obviously,
Well,
in the
so
past, they didn't have recycling technologies. They had no choice. But
right.
I think more and
But
more we have more choices.
but here's also the question, because I think this is a vector along this conversation. Is the landfill a sustainable practice if there's if population stays normative, like it, and not today's population, because there's a lot of people on the planet right now, but if you reduce that number that we have by a certain percentage, like when they would have made a landfill 50 years ago, not anticipating kind of explosive population growth, is it still sustainable at a more balanced rate? Like, doesn't the problem become compounded the more and more people we have making shit into landfills?
Yes, for sure it does. Like, I mean,
is there a point
I
where there's just a small amount and it's like landfills are okay and we'll move
but like
around
items
and
even items that biodegrade over time, and some of them like styrofoam or plastics, like you're talking about eons.
sure,
They
but
at one
there's so
point,
few
like,
of you can move downriver or find a solution
well, you
because
I
there's lots
think,
of space
yeah,
on the planet.
you just ruin the earth as
We're
you
well,
go.
we're well beyond that state.
But see, I do think that say what Mike was saying about like the past generations screwing us with their landfills next to the river, and how we're essentially screwing the future generations. What I think is sort of happening in stereo to this is that we're also developing these technologies, like Mike mentioned, and all that sort of stuff. I'm not sure if the landfills would have been sustainable, Bo, but I definitely know that like what we know about population growth, they will not be moving into the future. And a lot of these sci-fi dystopias that you see in movies and stuff involve like the earth being covered by piles of garbage and such. So I do think that like on one hand there's a bunch of people, the bows, who are just like throwing their trash around. It's filling up the landfills. They're just pretty much taking a big crap on
I
their
feel like you're
grandchildren.
saying all this just to get a slam in on me,
Yeah.
actually.
Children. And then on the other hand, you've got like, let's call them the mics, who
Mhm.
are working diligently in their laboratories to develop technologies to deal not only it's like the climate change thing where we were saying, are we only left with praying for a
Yeah.
scientific
Well,
breakthrough?
a scientific breakthrough, all right. And when I was in grade 1, I came up with the solution. I realistically should follow through instead of giving humanity crap for it. But hey, man, you don't need to have a landfill. We were doing environmental, like help save the environment projects, and my big idea was to store it all on this giant ship and shoot it out into space and fire it off at the sun. And is that off the table? Can we not fire trash out to the sun periodically?
I mean, it's interesting you say that, because I think that's not the first time I heard this. I think other people have legitimately thought about that as a way to deal with garbage, because again, the landfill
It's
thing, everything's interconnected here. So you put it anywhere, it's gonna get somewhere else. But yes, it's a cost. Like, you know how much it costs to put a pound of something into space? It's like, I mean, we could look it up quickly. Look it up quickly. Be like, what does it cost to put 1 pound into space?
okay.
And think of how many tons of garbage are picked up every day in any city. It would cost more money than like the GDP of all countries put together to put all our garbage, world garbage, into space. It's just impossible. Like, it's so.
And also the cost of like the environmental cost associated with taking,
Yeah,
like right now we're
spaceship.
still using petrol and gas and jet fuel to launch these things, and like just like even if you filled one of those space shuttles or something with trash, or you developed a dedicated thing, they're talking about space elevators. And this is, I'm not sure if people will then be like, hey, let's stick our garbage on the elevator and send it up into
It just
space.
shoots garbage.
Yeah, but there
But I
already
know
is
that
a
even
landfill around the planet where the satellites are because they go dead and get destroyed. Like apparently,
Yeah,
Yeah, there's
exactly.
garbage up
We
there
have
too.
yeah.
tons of space
And
trash
that's a
going around
problem
our
too.
that pretty much screwed Sandra Bullock in Gravity.
Yeah, you see that movie, Bo?
I did. But look, the point was to shoot it at the sun. Now I looked up the answer to your question. The answer is it depends on the rocket. So the range is anywhere from $13,182 per pound all the way down to $2,200 per pound if you use a Falcon Heavy. And apparently the SpaceX program, I think that's the Elon Musk thing, they're trying to break the $1,000 per pound barrier for commercial space flight.
First of all, that's just to get it into orbit. So like, if we follow Bo's like cost-effective plan of $1,000 per pound, we'll eventually have a layer of fucking garbage around our planet blocking out the sun because we didn't want to pay to get it out into proper space. You know, like,
right.
But what this all comes back to is that like, this is a massive problem of our time. And I just want to come back a little bit to Bo's point about the like, which amounts to carrying capacity.
Yeah.
When you were like, you know, if there was less people. And I think that's a really good point because like so many of these things that we talk about, they're problems because they're problems of scale. Like climate change is a problem of scale. Like we could all have like V8 cars spewing fumes if there was like 10 million people on the planet. It'd be no problem. The Earth can absorb and deal with a lot of this stuff. It definitely can. But we're so far past that that this problem of scale is just that's what it is. So you like, yes, small landfills could we deal with move down river, like, but we're so far past that now that it's just like all we're doing is making these toxic pockets of Earth all over the place, which eventually are going to be a problem again, and we're just like deferring this to the future.
Sounds like the moon is the solution. It really does.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea too.
I'm sorry. I know you're being
the
serious.
Moon is a pretty good
I know
landfill.
I'm offering very little in the way of actual intelligent response to your great points, Mike. But like, you know, we can't burn it because that's just moving the problem to the global warming issue. If there is a what's the word for, not a smokeless, but just a way to catalyze this and turn it into energy, as you say, without having a byproduct that affects our atmosphere. That seems like the direction then, right?
I just think it's like a bit of it's like this. I didn't think this was going to be so kind of waste issue tied to like the climate change issue,
right.
But I really think it is a lot in the sense that it's like a two-pronged thing is needed to deal with it, right? It's like you have this problem of some kind of waste, and it's two things. It's how do you deal with the waste, which is largely a technological problem, and then how do you deal with behavior of people, which is the consumer culture, which drives the creation of waste, because that's a problem too. Like, you know, landfill is just the Band-Aid being like, we have stuff that's disposable. We shouldn't be making stuff like this, but that's the consumer culture we live in. So it's like, how do you change people's behavior to either separate out their stuff, or
I hear really loud typing.
Yeah, that is loud. Or consume less to begin with, and like, this is like, you know, when they hold like the reduce, reuse, recycle, that like RRR, and like the most important one is the reduce one, but yet it's like contrary to how our economy works. You know, it'd be like the least stuff you can consume, the better you're going to do for everything, you know. But like, anyway, I mean, it does all come back to the questions like, well, what do we do with it now, right? And it's like, if we don't have the incineration technology on hand, you know, it's one of those things like, well, yeah, we got to just put in a hole, right? Like,
yeah. Well, so we're judging the merits of whether this is good, bad, or bullshit. Are we ready to kind of discuss? Because we talked a lot about the landfill issue, but it seems like they're kind of benign, right? Like I think.
No, they're not benign.
No, they're benign. Like whether they're good or bad sort of depends on the context of it. So like we're talking about the current context of landfills. Like there might be an argument to be made that landfills are good, say in the 13th century. You know, potentially there would be communities who would have appreciated the idea of a landfill instead of throwing their piss on the road.
I concede your point as the alternative being like, let's all just pile our trash in the streets in front of our houses, as like, yes, it's better than that. I agree.
Okay. All right. I'm actually going to stop the recording here for a quick second because I got to check in with Crofton. He looks impatient. So are you getting us, Crofton?
Yeah, I hear you guys.
Whoa.
It's just you're both.
Oh, you're really sounding bad. Yeah.
It's just you're both really pixelated on my screen.
All right, let me give you guys a quick call back. All right, we'll resume the recording in a second. All right, hang up now. hang up, guys.
Oh.
Yeah,
We
press
have-
the hang up. Press the hang up button. Hey, man.
Hello.
All right, let me get Crofton back in here.
Hmm.
Yeah, everyone's pretty poopy. For some reason, I feel like the problem's on my end.
I feel like people are poopy as well. My feeling is the problem's on Skype's end.
Could be.
Skype.
Yeah, everyone's a little on the pixelated side.
Yeah, you sound good, Bo. Mike said a couple of words that sounded bad. I don't know how I sound.
Sound fine to me.
You sound better, but Mike got crusty. It's pretty annoying.
No.
Pretty
See,
annoying.
it's like, but Mike, it's like you got whatever I had earlier. It's, I don't know. Can we restart the call and have, say, Mike host it?
Well, you guys were hosting first. That's why I took care of the call. Let's try to. I'm reading as yellow on call quality information. It says bad. Now it says medium.
Mm.
It's weird.
I got, yeah.
Your call
It says
quality is medium.
medium.
Oh, you guys are starting to clear it up. Mike, say something else.
I'm saying something else now.
Oh, you're crusty.
Yeah. Oh, there he
I
goes.
hung up on him.
You did that?
Yeah. When you are the host of the call, you have the power to hang up on people. I just learned that because I couldn't hang up on you.
What?
You guys wouldn't go away. You guys wouldn't. I was like, oh, there's no hang up button. It's because I didn't call
Oh,
you.
because I was hosting the call.
Yeah, I just realized I can make my face bigger down below. That's awesome.
Wow. All right, turn your webcam on again, Mike. Let's try this a second time.
Oh, right.
A second time.
Come on, big money, big money, big money.
Big money, big money.
What's good is we can just roll into verdicts when we start re-recording.
Yeah, I did some text. That's why I sort of set that up that way. Oh. All right, we're good enough. Let's get the show accompli. You guys ready to go? What did I last say? Pills are good, say, in the 13th century. You know, potentially there would be communities who would have appreciated the idea of a landfill
Okay,
instead of...
pile of trash in the streets in front of our houses.
All right, so you guys ready for verdicts? We're at 33 minutes in and we got an email to read. Let's do it. All right.
Do it.
Oh my god. All right, I don't know about you guys, but I am ready to roll into verdicts, I think. I think landfills are a big topic. No pun intended. You guys ready for verdicts?
Yes.
Yeah,
All right.
bring in the animal.
Let's bring our panel of jurors that we don't need.
Order, I say. Order in the court.
Very nice. Order in the court. All right, I think I'm going to go first. So this is kind of a tough one because, as I alluded to slightly before verdict time, it feels like they can be kind of both good and bad, and the world around it depends on it. Like they're a place to store garbage. Are garbage bins bad? Because that's where we put that garbage and eventually move it to a landfill. So a landfill is just like a big garbage can. And generally speaking, garbage cans are pretty good because it's better than putting the garbage anywhere else. Now, I think Mike's points are well made that like they're still bad because they have an environmental impact. And we need a better solution. However, given the current range of solutions, a landfill is preferable to some other alternatives like no landfill, which is pretty much the only other alternative. So this is kind of a tough thing. I can't say they're good because of the environmental impact, but I can't say they're bad because I prefer the garbage placed in specified areas as we have decided to do. So I'm going to say that landfills are bullshit. That's my analysis. Verdict's given.
Give Mike the last word. I agree with a lot of what Bo just said there.
It hurts, doesn't it?
It does, especially considering you treat the earth like your own personal toilet. but what he says makes sense. What Mike says makes sense too, and definitely when you look at it, like when you look at what a landfill is and what it's doing to the earth, it's not doing a good thing. It is not making the earth better. It is not, and the argument for it being good, and Bo made the example earlier of like in the olden days, when the alternative is like piling garbage in the streets or bringing it out to a landfill. I guess it's a less bad, and and it continues to be less bad, but it's doing, it's overall doing damage to the planet. That said, if I, like I said earlier, if you eliminated landfills tomorrow, I mean, we'd be wholly screwed in the short term anyway. So, and maybe their existence, to answer Mike's question from earlier, are they enabling sort of consumer culture and stuff? I'm sure that they are. The fact that these things exist, and that people know that, oh, it's not, I can't see it, so it's gone, and that is definitely a negative. But I still think like I'm constantly using landfills to handle the waste, and I get the benefit of living in a clean urban environment. I mean, I want technology to improve. I want these solutions that Mike mentioned to happen at an industrial level. I want this garbage to be shot into the sun or placed underground in the moon, like Bo is suggesting. But right now, these are the cards we got, and I think that it's enough for me not to be able to say that they're wholly bad. So I'm going to agree with Bo and say that landfills are bullshit.
All right.
Well,
Michael, where will you land?
clearly not good. It's funny though hearing that Crofton kind of agree with Bo and sum up, those good points all around, guys. I don't disagree with really any of them, and the possibility of being good is a legitimate one. I just want to say this off the bat because from like a public health perspective, they're definitely good because it's the whole garbage in the street versus like things like a landfill has arguably raised life expectancy. So that's interesting. But I'm kind of approaching this one in the same way that I'm approaching say our discussion on prisons, and like it's a complex issue because it's the end effect of a complicated problem, right? Like crime. Why do people commit crime? Blah blah blah.
Oh,
And
there's
like
a name for
same with
that.
this.
Like a Jupiter problem.
What?
What's the name for that problem?
Wicked problem.
It's a hard problem.
Wicked problem.
Yeah.
So yeah. So consumer culture bad. Behavior of people not taking responsibility for their own, waste bad as well. And in the end, we just put in a big hole. We're deferring a problem, and the place itself, burying underground where everything is interconnected, even with the improving technology, like the thing itself, it's an area that is fenced off that you should not go. It's dangerous. It's emitting methane that they're burning off. Like they're bad places. They're toxic. They're dangerous to your health. They're dangerous for the future. They're bad things. They're things we have to deal with, like so many things that are current truths in the world. But that doesn't mean they're good, even if we're stuck with them for now. I mean, I do think there will be technologies that would emerge, and that probably municipalities and governments in general should be taking stronger action on trying to be like, how can we deal with this problem better than just landfilling? I still think it's the easy solution, especially in a country like ours, which seems vast. But when you spend a lot of time at the nature museum, which I do because I have a toddler, we go there. You look at like the watersheds, and you're like, man, there's so much water in this country, and everything's so close to each other. Like all that stuff just leaks around, So I'm gonna say, and even though because I use them, and I'm a huge hypocrite, but that doesn't. So whatever. I don't mind being a hypocrite. That's just acknowledging reality. It's not like it's such a pejorative thing to call someone a hypocrite, but I just think it's more just you understand the nature of whatever.
Dude.
They're bad. Landfills are bad. I'm a hypocrite, and that's okay.
Man, you had a real moment there. You called yourself a hypocrite, and then you started defending yourself against yourself.
I did.
You're like, I'm a hypocrite. I'm not a hypocrite.
Well, it's like in just to take another moment here, but it's like in politics when people are always calling each other hypocrites because they said one thing here and they said one other thing there, and be like, you can change your mind about things, and you can hold complicated views on things which seem to contradict each other. Hypocrisy is just the nature of living in a complex world. Everyone's a hypocrite.
I have a take on hypocrisy. It's when your words don't actually match your acts. So I would be a hypocrite if I said I'm a recycler and I believe in recycling, which I almost kind of got busted for in the beginning of the show, but then never recycle. That's being a hypocrite.
Well, I'm
the hypocrite, basically. That's what happened this episode. You were nowhere near being a hypocrite.
No, I am a hypocrite because when you guys are going through your verdicts, I was thinking about how I am currently renovating a house and have sent freaking truckloads of shit to the landfill recently and feel super guilty about it. I'm like, well, what else are we going to do with it? I'm a massive hypocrite, but it's still a bad thing, right? I know it's a bad thing, even if I'm complicit in it. I can still acknowledge it,
Okay.
Bo.
All right. Well, speaking of acknowledging great things, I'd like you to write in and acknowledge what your opinions are on landfills. That was a kind of a hypocritical segue. That's a wrong use of the word hypocritical. Email us at goodbadbull@gmail.com like this person did. There comes the letter.
We got mail.
Yeah, we got some mail. Ooh, this is exciting. All right, we don't often get mail, folks. If you're a regular listener, you know that. So buckle in for a great little message here from Carrie. So Carrie writes in, we understand that he's a fan of the show. Carrie, hello. We understand that you like to run on the treadmill while listening to the show. It's pretty awesome.
He gets infuriated probably and then runs faster. Go, Carrie. Go.
All right. So he says, hey, guys, we've been chatting back and forth on the twit. Thought I'd throw in a more comprehensive idea for what I've been saying. So he's been shooting some ideas off at us. Before he shoots the ideas, he says, you guys are awesome. I generally zen out to podcasts when I'm gymming it and when I'm working. So your podcast helps me through the work week. And Bo twofold because I started listening to him on Core. Oh, you're going to cause a rift between my co-hosts if you bring up my other podcasts. Anyways, so on to my topic. So he has some suggestions for topics, and Mike Crofton, you're going to tell Carrie what you think. Okay. So man buns. I think it would be entertaining as hell to listen to. I'm bald, so watching someone put their hair in a man bun is equally as entertaining as it is aggravating.
I would like to talk about man buns because I have very strong opinions. I'm just
put in
wondering
the hopper. And Carrie, just to infuriate you, I've worn a man bun, and I know that Bo has too.
Yep.
The mileage we could get out of it would be little, I think.
Well, it'd be a short one, but it is a, what do you call it? It has the momentum right now in the pop culture, the zeitgeist, if you will.
Yeah, there's a lot of see, I don't think people who wear man buns think they're all that special, but the people who hate them really enjoy hating them. Yeah. And I think there's something to talk about there that
kind of funny.
Yeah. All right, he goes on to say celebrity chefs. So Carrie's a chef. And the topic is celebrity chefs is a very common discussion between chefs. Most of it's negative, some of it's positive. Huh. There are a lot of talented, creative, and community-driven chefs who are so well known that they hit the rank of celebrity chef. My fiance,
Gordon Ramsay.
Yeah, my fiance is a pastry chef in the city and works out for a very well-known borderline celebrity chef. Her chef is the sweetest person I've ever met. It completely negates the idea of a yelling, screaming cycle most of us are used to. And then there are the Bobby Flays or the Guy Fieri's or the Rachel Rays, and they are just awful.
Guy Fieri's.
So it's a solid discussion to have as well. You got thoughts?
Yeah, for sure. I'd talk about it. I'd almost
pastry chef. You've done more, right, Carrie? I like me some pastry.
I would make it even a broader topic to be like, if there's like celebrities with regards to professions, more than just chefs. Like,
and I would even say, but I would almost take it a step back, and I wouldn't mind his input on this again. Is sort of chef culture or restaurant culture is a really interesting one. A guy who lives above me is a chef, and a very nice fellow and good cook. And the culture seems insane. I mean, I've not worked in a kitchen, but I've known a few people who have, and it seems like totally nuts what they put sous chefs through and the hours expected to
Yeah.
work and the cultures and the like. I've seen some memes about like ads looking for a chef, and they're just insane what a chef will demand of a sous chef or whatever in a kitchen. Anyways, that's an interesting one too.
And they all smoke,
But yeah,
right?
celebrity-
There's a lot of smokers in the chef world.
Feels like a passion job, eh? Like it's one of those jobs where when they get people, they sort of take advantage of their passion. Like people want to be chefs, so we'll treat them like shit.
All right, well, it seems like a good idea. I already see Mike wanting to say
Yeah,
something
let's-
back at
let's not go
Crofton,
into it too
so
much.
good on you. And also, just like to let you know, when Mike really likes a pastry and he gives you one to eat, he says this.
Suck on these croissants, bitch.
All right. The third idea is money. And so money and narcissism. How can someone with so much money like Trump not understand how much of an asshole he is? On the flip side, how can someone like Elon Musk be as innovative as he is, but seem so humble and be worth so much? Money is at the root of all evil, but it can promote change in the right hands. There could be a solid premise to revisit. Because I think we did.
I like that because I would like to revisit that, and I mean I think he answered his own question about Trump with the narcissism comment, and him being a narcissist is partially probably why he's a big asshole and can't see it. But yeah, no, I mean I don't know how we frame that for but I'm sure we could find a way because I love talking about money and stuff, and there's more to.
We did
more
do an episode on money and capitalism, and people love those
check
episodes.
those
They're the best episodes. They're the best.
The interesting conversation here is narcissism. Now, there's a secret episode of Good, Bad, or Bullshit that never made it to live about selfies because the thing blew up in our face about halfway through. And so that is almost kind of an episode on narcissism. That, to me, is the interesting thing here because definitely rich people are narcissists. So we could cover the money issue, but also talk about our culture of narcissism that we have.
Well,
nowadays.
yeah, I'm sure this is a good way to frame it, but it's a good suggestion, and we'll figure something out and put it in the hopper for sure.
All right. Well, he says thanks again for the show and keep up the good work. And Carrie, thank you so much for the email. We don't get enough of these great emails, and we love to hear from people who actually listen to the show and enjoy it. That means a lot to us.
It does. Thank you so much.
Run faster.
Okay, anyways, to continue on with the end of the show thing, write to us, goodbadbull@gmail.com, and share your thoughts here. Tell us we're wrong, tell us we're right, tell Crofton he's handsome, or tell him he's full of shit and not handsome. Do it. If you're listening to the show but don't know where you got it from, you can go to goodbadbull.com, find out how to subscribe on iTunes and Google Play. And for the record, never go to Stitcher again. That company got sold again to a bunch of evil advertising jerks, and I'm worried I need to get the show off there. So never go there. Google Play, what was the other one? iTunes. We're on YouTube, youtube.com/goodbadbullshow. You can find video archives there, but just go to our site and watch the video there. They're embedded in the blog post. Finally, you can find us on Twitter @goodbadbull. And I'd like to give a massive MF and thank you to the people who support us on Patreon. It helps support the show, and it just makes us feel good. For the price of a half of a cup of coffee a month, you can help pay for the show and show your support in a financial,
Or
more
you can help
meaningful
feed
way.
a starving child in Africa. It's your choice.
Right.
Your choice what
Well,
you
you
can
can
do
do
with that cup of
both.
coffee.
It's so little money for both that you can do both. If you're making 50
You can
grand a
do
year,
both.
you can spend $12 on Good, Bad, or Bullshit. We do the show for free. It isn't much to ask, but the show will always be free. So if it is too much to ask, don't feel guilty. That's the nature of being a micro outsourced thing in this day and age. You can support the things you like for very little. It's awesome. All right. I think that wraps up all the end of the show stuff, except as Crofton famously says, we're individuals of an individual nature. I hope to see that on your tombstone or on a statue of you in Ottawa once they finally commemorate you for your genius. We're all individuals of an individual nature.
Except
Crofton.
for twins. Another twin slam.
Right. Yeah.
Drink.
So, Crofton, where can our folks find you on the internet?
They can find me dumping my thoughts into Twitter @CroftonSteers.
It's a 7. It's a 7.
Twitter, the landfill of ideas. Should be their new slogan.
Okay.
yeah,
Mike just helped
you
you
can
make that a
find
10. So.
My garbage.
I didn't
tweets.
prompt you yet, but
Oh,
Mike, where can our people find you?
well, I guess at ML Hodgins.
I wanted
on
to hear
Twitter.
your landfill slam. No?
No, I stopped it. Sorry.
All right, well, you
I-
can find me
Jokes in the lab?
dumping my great ideas onto Twitter and also my plays of the game, my joke ones that are bad that I make on Twitter at Bo Schwartz. All right.
I find that I feel bad because we had that great email and it gave people a little how the sausage is made feeling with GBB, in the sense that we had a bit of a discussion on what topics work and which ones don't and what it makes us think of. So that's cool. But this episode's going to go up online on our site, and it's going to say landfills next to it. And somebody's going to be like, let me see. This is a good podcast people have told me about. Which episode? I should just choose a topic I like. So there's beer. Okay. And then, landfills. That sounds interesting. I'll listen to this. Nobody's going to listen to
Well,
it.
you laugh, but listen to how passionate Mike is about the environment. I'm sure those are the ones that would jump out
I
of
still
him on
don't
stuff
think
he
Mike
should
would click on that. Maybe if he was listening to every episode week for week, and we all know he doesn't listen to the show, but if he was listening to
I
episodes
do. I listen to it live, man.
week to week, then he would listen to the landfill episode. But I even think Mike, if he was looking at a list of our episodes, the landfill episode wouldn't even be in his top 10.
No, I would. I like stuff like that. Sorry, Croft.
I don't believe it.
All right.
I
That's a
choose
good-
not to believe it.
I got somewhere to cut it off in there. We're good. All right, live stream viewers, video on demand watchers, thank you for tuning in. We're going to shut down the stream, but I just want to say one thing to you. You're awesome. Bye.